Welcome to InventorCAM Professor. I'm Sydney, your InventorCAM Professor, and in this session we'll be talking about high-speed surface machining with the option of perpendicular to curve. The option of perpendicular to curve allows me to work on a specific surface and pick a curve that I want to work perpendicular to that curve on that surface itself. Now, this can also be done using the HSM modular, but with the HSS modular, we actually have a smoother cut on the surface itself, and it's also a lot easier to pick. Let's take a look at how this works. We'll start off by choosing our operation of HSS, and we'll choose the option in our geometry of perpendicular to curve. Now, our drive surface, I've already pre-selected my drive surface, and I'll show it to you. Basically, we're talking about this surface here is the surface I want to work on. And our curve, in other words, the curve that we want to follow along, will be this curve over here, as shown here. Now, what's important to note is that when I use my selected faces, it's important to see what my direction of my surfaces are. It's always important to have my surfaces going in the proper direction. If any of the surfaces are not going in the proper direction, I can simply right-click on the surface and just set reverse, and that section in itself will be reversed. In this particular case, all my surfaces are going in the right direction. Now, I'll choose my tool. And in this particular case, I'll use a 10mm ball end mill. Now let me go back to my geometry for a moment, and I want to change my area type from full avoid to full start at the end of exact surface edges. In other words, I want to go to basically to the very end. But in addition to that, I want to extend it a little bit past the end. So we have the option here of extend trim. By extend trim, I simply, as shown in the picture here, can actually extend my surface, that it goes a little past my surface, or if I do in the negative area, I can actually subtract from the edge of the surface. I'll simply say extend trim, and I can add a value of, or a percentage of the tool, and say I'll add a value at the start of 3mm, and at the end I'll also add another 3mm. In my levels, I'll leave it exactly the way it is. And my toolpath parameters, you'll note that my cutting method will be zigzag. Now we also have here our parameters such as maximum step over, and I'll have my maximum step over at 0.5mm. Now we have here our scallop, and this is one case where we actually can use a scallop. Now, if I were to change my scallop, for example, to, just for example, I'll change it to 0.1, you'll note that my maximum step over will also change. Sorry, I said 0.1. I'll change it over. My maximum step over will also change. In other words, there's a direct connection between my maximum step over and my scallop. If I'll change this back to 0.5, you'll see that my scallop will also change in the opposite direction. Now I want to go into my link, and I can say we'll use our lead in and we'll use our lead out. Those are all the changes I want to make. The rest I'll leave it exactly the way the default values are, and I'll simply say save and calculate. Now if we take a look at our simulation, and I'll use the 3D simulation in the top view, you'll note that my toolpath is going actually across, back and forth, exactly according to the shape of that particular surface as you see it here. And then when it gets to the curve, it goes according to the exact shape of the curve, and then back going straight across, and the same thing on the other side, giving us a nice straight finish. Now, if I were to do this using HSM, which I can, you'll take a look at the simulation, and instead of getting that straight going back and forth movement, instead what happens here is very simply that the tool starts off going back and forth according to the center, but as it's moving away from the center point, it's always pointing towards the center, therefore starting to curve away on the surface itself. Whereas in the HSS, it worked straight across back and forth instead of what we're doing here now. Although this works well in HSM also, but you'll get a better finish in this particular case using HSS. Thank you for joining us on InventorCAM Professor. Take care and have a nice day.